Hello students, today we will deal with the political philosophy of the Kautilya. You are aware that the Kautilya is also called as Vishnugupta and Chanakya. He is mostly famous with the name of Chanakya in the history. He was the prime minister of the great kingdom of Maurya during the period of great king Chandragupta Maurya. He lived between 350 to 275 BC. There are some differences of opinion among the historians about his period of life, that when he has taken birth and when he died, like that. But as students of political science, we are not much concerned about that. We are much concerned about his ideas, his philosophy, his ideology and his works, like that. So here we may contain with the date of birth as 350 to 275 BC. In fact, he is a recent discovery. His book Arthashastra was recently discovered. The name of Chanakya and Vishnugupta may be mentioned in the history, but his greatness lies in his book of Arthashastra that is recently discovered. Recently means it is discovered between 1905 in 1905 by a Brahmin in his ancient collection of books, like that. So he brought it to the public and published it in a local newspaper as a serial between 1905 to 1908. It was a period of British government. British people were there in India. They have taken notice of this great treaty, and they have taken this book and translated it into English and many other European languages. Then only we came to know the greatness of this person. So he is very much known by his book Arthashastra. This book contains, it is a detailed book, and the name Arthashastra should not confuse the students of political science, because at that time there was no separation between economics, political science, philosophy, public administration, like that. All these sciences are regarded as the part and parcel of one single unified knowledge. That's why Arthashastra means, here there were two types of the knowledge. One was the worldly knowledge and other was the spiritual knowledge. Artha Shastra means worldly knowledge. So it contains something about the politics, something about the foreign relations, it means international relations, something regarding the economics, something pertaining to the public administration also. The public administration people may have his mention of his book Arthashastra in their theory of political science, theory of public administration book also. So this book contains various sciences and various topics. So it contains 15 books. At that time, the units or modules used to be called as books. So the Arthashastra has 15 modules or 15 units, that is called as books. Next, there are 150 chapters. Today we have units, and in those units we have chapters, like that. In each and every book there were chapters. So these goes to 150. Next, there are 180 sections in this book and almost 6,000 slokas. This book is in the form of slokas. At the time, Generally, people used to write in the in the form of slokas. So he has also composed his treatise Arthashastra in the form of slokas. So there are 6,000 slokas in his book. Now we should go to the political philosophy of the Kautilya. The first thing is that he supported the monarchy, but it must not be taken as absolute monarchy, because he put some restraints upon the king also, that he must follow the rules and regulations of the dharma, rules and regulation of the society, like that. That's why this is not an absolute kingdom, but the king must have some restraints and he should follow the dharma, like that. But he has given highest place to the king and called him as the Swami. He followed, or he proposed the divine theory of the kingship. We have already studied various theories of the origin of the state. So the Kautilya supported the divine origin of the king, and he has also a concept of the state of nature. We are also aware of the concept of the state of nature. We have already studied in the last semester what is a state of nature, that it is a condition prior to the origin of the state, a condition before the establishment of the state is called as state of nature. It is not like a state of Telangana or state of Maharashtra, like that. So it is a condition just before the establishment of the state, and we are aware that there are at least two concepts about the state of nature, that how it was. Hobbes portrayed a very gloomy picture of the state of nature, while as Locke presented a very beautiful picture of the state of nature. Here the Kautilya also portrayed a very gloomy picture of the state of nature. According to him, there was an oppression each and everywhere in the state of nature, and the rule of Matsyana was followed in the state of nature. What is the rule of Matsyana? Matsyana means rule of fish. What is the rule of fish? We are aware that the big fish eats the small one. That is the rule of Matsyana. So the Matsyana was in vogue during the state of nature. That's why people fed up with the state of nature and they prayed to the god that he should send some king to rule over them, to bring some lawfulness into their life, into their society. They prayed to the god. Then the god sent Manu as their king. He created some rules and regulations. He established the peace. He established the dharma, and he has written a code called as Manu Shastra. So here we have to take note that the concept of the state of nature was present in Indian philosophy much before it originated in European philosophy, at least 1800 years before its origin in the European philosophy. The concept of state of nature was present in Indian philosophy, and it is preferred by the Kautilya in his book Arthashastra. So the people favored by the god and the god established the king. It means that the state is a divine origin. That's why the people should follow the rules and regulations of the king. Next, I have already told that he did not favor the absolute kingship. He wants some restraints and some wisdom over the kingship. That's why he educated that the king must have a Mantri Parishad, the council of ministers, to advise and assist him in conducting the administration of the kingdom. King should not rule the kingdom alone. He must have the assistance of mantris, and he must take the persons of dignity, honesty, purity, intelligence, truthfulness, sincerity, loyalty, wisdom and experience into his Mantri Parishad. He should not take laymen, he should not take fools as ministers. Before taking them as ministers, he must judge them. He must take their intelligence and their honesty and dignity into consideration. He must check all these qualities, then only he must appoint them as his ministers. And he must not appoint persons of vices like hatred, enmity into the ministry. He also suggested that. Next, the famous concept of Kautilya is the concept of danda. Here danda means coercive force, what we called now in modern terminology, political terminology, coercive force. It means a force that compels the people to follow the rules and regulations and dictates of the state by force. For instance, if there is a curfew and someone try to go out, the police will forcefully send him back into his house. That is coercive force. The coercive force is called as danda by the Kautilya. So, the king should adopt danda. Without the danda, the kingship cannot prevail, cannot be conducted and cannot be preserved. Danda is a must. And again, he suggested 3 principles to be followed while adopting or enforcing the danda. The first is fry. Fry in his language, it is fry. Fry means rules of justice. He educated that the king should follow the rules of justice while enforcing danda. Otherwise, it may create some dissent among the people if the concept or the rules of justice is not followed by the king. That's why especially in enforcing danda, the king should follow the rules of justice. Next, anvikoki. There must be a philosophy while applying danda. What the philosophy should be? The Kautilya suggests that the philosophy should be in applying danda that the criminal or wrongdoer, it should bring change in wrongdoer or the criminal. It should not just to punish or harm the wrongdoer. The philosophy behind a punishment or behind enforcing the danda should be that it should bring change in the wrongdoer or the criminal. This philosophy must be followed while applying the danda. Next, economics. Vrata. Vrata means economics. Economics also must be followed. The danda should not be applied in an uneconomical manner. It means that if he has the opportunity to see our prisons, he won't favor them. because it is not economical. We used to feed the criminals on the taxes, on the hard earning taxes of the people. That is not favored by the Kautilya. He says that the danda should be applied in a manner that is economical. Next, he has given much importance to the danda. He is regarded it as the symbol of the authority. We have familiar with the concept of sovereignty. We have studied it in the last semester. The concept of sovereignty, that only the state should have the coercive power, only the state should have the danda. It is said by the Kautilya, that only king or his appointed officials should use the danda. The danda should not be used by each and every one person. It is a symbol of authority. It is symbol of significance of the state or the king. Next, he suggested that the king must use the danda reasonably, with some reason. He should not use it irreasonably. It means that he should not give very much harsh punishments to the people, to the criminals, for petty crimes or for petty things, for petty violations. Like if some one carried a small petty crime, then if he is killed by the king, a death punishment is given to him, it will develop some dissent among the people. That's why he should not be so harsh, and at the same time he should not be so kind towards the criminals. Otherwise, what will happen? Lawlessness will prevail. The fearlessness will be developed among the criminals. They may resort to the crimes. It will develop lawlessness and anarchy in the society, and then also the people may revolt against the king. That's why the king must be reasonably applied the danda. He must not be so harsh. He must not be so kind while applying danda upon the criminals. Next, the Kautilya given much importance to the education. It was the period before almost 4 centuries before the birth of the Christ that he is educating the education, given importance to the education. It was almost the same time that Plato was educating the education in Greece, in Europe. So almost the Kautilya is contemporary of the Plato, not correctly, precisely, but almost. So here Kautilya also given much importance to the education, especially to the education of the king. This also again reminds us the Plato, who educated the philosophers king. Kautilya also educated a philosopher king. And like Plato, he is also educated that the education of the king should be started at a tender age, and it should not be only bookish knowledge. It should be a knowledge of books, philosophy, economics, as well as other bookish sciences, but it must be also of the arms and ammunition, battlefield, like that. The king must be acquainted with the battlefield also. He must be well versed in arms and ammunition also. And he says that, Kautilya says that the king must have three kinds of knowledge at least. Apart from the knowledge of the arms and ammunition and battlefield, he must have three kinds of the bookish knowledge. That is, first of Vedas, he must be acquainted with Vedas, and he must have good knowledge of Vedas. Then of philosophy, whatever the philosophy is there available, he must have the knowledge of that philosophy. Similarly, of economics and politics, how he must rule the kingdom, and how he must earn the taxes and other such income to the kingdom. He must have knowledge of those things also. Then only he will be a successful king. Similarly, the king must be the supreme commander of the armed forces. Then only he may be succeeded. Otherwise, if the king is not the supreme commander and he has given the supreme command to any other person, he may revolt against the king. That's why he must hold the command in his own hands itself. Next, the welfare state concept. Here nowadays we have welfare state concepts, and it is originated just around 2 centuries ago. It is a modern concept nowadays, but in India we have it around 2400 ago, at least 2000 years ago, that it is presented in the European philosophy. Kautilya insisted that the foremost duty of the king, according to Kautilya, is the welfare of the people. For the welfare of the people, he must sacrifice his own family, his own interest, and even, if necessary, his wife. So the first priority should be given to the welfare of the people, not to the welfare of his family or his dynasty or his wife or his children, like that. He must take the next, he educated that the king should take all the people as his own children. He should treat the people as his own children, and he should not differentiate among the people on the basis of his relation, kith and kin, like that. He must treat the all alike, and he should protect all the people, but should show a special concern towards the children, old age people, and widows. Widows not to marry in those days. That's why their conditions was very gloomy, very harsh. That's why Kautilya suggested a special concentration upon these part of the society. Then the king should construct roads, canals, dams, etc. At that time, it was not a duty of the kings in general to construct roads and such other things. It is regarded that the king should only protect the people from the invaders as well as the criminals, insiders and outsiders. And other duties are regarded as something of a gift of a good-hearted king. But here Kautilya regarded it as a duty of the king to construct the roads, canals, dams, provide irrigation facilities to farmers, extend help to the farmers, extend the people during natural calamities. All these things, that is nowadays functions of the welfare state, it is regarded as the duties of the king by the Kautilya. Next most important duty of the king is the administration of the justice. Without administration of the justice, a king cannot rule for a long period. He must have a system of administration of justice. He must be the head of the system of justice, and he must have courts like that. Here he differentiated between the two types of the courts. One is the civil and other is criminal. Nowadays we have this distinction between the civil and the criminal cases. What are the civil cases? Civil cases means those litigations that does not involve violence. Such litigations are called civil cases, like property disputes and defame cases, like that. All these are civil cases. While as criminal means that involves a violence or criminal conspiracy, like murder, theft and such other things. All these are called as criminal cases. So nowadays also there are two separate courts for dealing these two types of the cases. At that time it was not prevalent. Generally there was only one judge and he used to deal all those cases, civil and as well as the criminal. But here Kautilya proposed a new concept, and he proposed two types of the courts. He called civil courts as dharmasya and criminal courts as kantaka sodhana. Next, he educated the small courts or tribunals at village level also, not only at the city or at big places. Even the villages must have some sort of administrative system, that may be a tribunal or village panchayat or like that, but there must be some system of administration of justice at village level also. He subscribed to the concept of justice delayed is justice denied. If justice is delayed, then it must be regarded as justice denied. There is no justice in providing justice after 10 years, 20 years and 30 years, like that, what we are nowadays seeing in our modern democracies, that the courts used to take 30 years, 40 years, 50 years like that to adjudicate a case of dispute, even with regard to property and like such petty things. So he educated a hasty justice, system of hasty justice, justice in time, and the justice should not be delayed. Next, his diplomacy. Kautilya proposes 6 principles of diplomacy. Diplomacy means we know that it is something like a policy with regard to dealing with other states. It is called as diplomacy. So Kautilya proposes 6 principles of diplomacy. First principle is peace treaties. Kautilya educates that the king should conclude peace agreements with neighboring states if they offer so, because it will provide some time to strengthen himself, to strengthen his people, to develop the kingdom, to make proper war arrangements, to strengthen his standing armies, like that. So it is wiseful for a king to conclude peace treaties in his initial stage even, with neighboring kingdoms. Next, war management. He should not rely upon the peace treaties, because he himself, Kautilya himself, advocate that the peace treaty is only a strategy, a diplomacy. We are not in favor of complete peace. We have expansion designs, but at this moment we are not in a mood of war. That's why we are concluding peace treaties. Whenever the other person, other kingdom become weak, we never hesitate to invade him. It was our policy, our hidden policy. So the same hidden policy may have by the other king, by our neighbor state. That's why we must have proper war arrangements at our disposal. Otherwise we may be defeated, our kingdom may be taken, may be merged into the enemy's kingdom. That's why we must have war managements. Next, principle of neutrality. The king should not take unnecessary part in other kingdoms' disputes. He must be neutral as far as possible, but it should not be a permanent phenomenon. At initial stage, he must watch by observing neutrality, that who is the powerful. Then once it is concluded who is powerful, then the king should join his side. That is another principle of diplomacy. Neutrality at initial stage, and after that joining the powerful party. Next, war arrangements without announcing war. The fourth principle is that we must have war arrangements under cover. Otherwise, if it is revealed, then the other neighboring state also started his war arrangements, and he may gain more power to us. That's why what we have to do, we have to conceal our war preparations, and we should do our own arrangements for the war without announcing the war upon the others. Next, fifth principle is seeking help of other powerful states. The king should try to gain the help of the other powerful kingdoms, powerful kings, by offering matrimonial alliances, by offering gifts, by offering other such valuable things, or even some portion of the small land to him. It will help our kingdom, and it will gain some defense to our kingdom. That's why we must have the powerful allies on our side. The king should try to gain the friendship of the powerful kings. Next, concluding peace treaty with one and arranging for war with another country. The sixth principle is that we should conclude peace treaty with one neighbor and try to invade or going with war with another country or with another king. It must be our diplomacy. It means that the diplomacy adopted by Kautilya or educated by Kautilya is not a peaceful one, but of a deceitfulness. He is educating a ruthless, moralless philosophy of war or of foreign relations. Next, the most important part of the political philosophy of Kautilya is Saptanga theory. It is especially mentioned in our syllabus. That's why you should give more concentration upon this theory. What is Saptanga? Sapta means 7, while as Anga means parts. Theory we are aware what is theory. So what Angas, it is in fact a theory of the elements of the state. We are familiar with the theory of the state elements having 4 elements at our disposal. The first one is the population, second one is the area or territory, the third one is government, fourth one is sovereignty. Some political thinkers added the 5th element also, the international recognition, like that. Here our philosopher Kautilya suggested 7 elements instead of these 4 or 5, and he proposed a proposed that it is like a human body. The state is like a human body, and whatever heart and head is there, these elements are also like that. So he proposed 7 elements for the state. The first one is Swami or the king. We may equate it with the sovereignty. Okay, the king, it is the first and foremost element of a state according to Kautilya. Next, Amatya. Amatya means ministers. We may equate it with the modern government. Okay. The third element is Janapada. Janapada means the people and territory. We are giving it to different elements. We are regarding it as 2 different elements, people one element and territory as another element. But Kautilya joined both under the Janapada. Janapada means both people as well as territory. The 5th one is Durga. Durga means fort. It is something like defense mechanism in modern terminology, because we don't have forts anymore for our states, because our states are very big and we cannot make any fort to protect the entire area of the of our states, modern day states, except 1 or 2. But here he regarded the fort or Durga as one element of the state. Next, Kosha. Kosha means treasury. It is modern economy, equal to modern economy. That the state must have a proper economy also, otherwise it may fail. Because without economy, a state cannot survive for a long period. The people will revolt, the army will revolt against the king, and lawlessness prevail for some time, and another king may take the realms into his own hand. So it is treasury is also one element of the state. Next, Mitra. Mitra means allies. As we have seen under the heading of the diplomacy that the king should have some allies in the form of neighboring kings. These allies must be powerful enough to give hand in help while we are in need. So these 7 elements consist the Saptanga theory of the political philosophy of our philosopher Kautilya. This is a very important theory, and you must have write some matter under each and every heading, under the Swami, Amatya, Janapada, like that. For this purpose you have to follow the textbook. What are the other things that is stressed by Kautilya is the administration of the village. Village must be regarded as the administrative unit of the kingdom, and it must be headed by an official. He has given the name of Samaharta to that official. Under the head under the precedence of the Samaharta, the village administration must be carried on, and it is necessary to collect taxes from all sorts of the people. Only rich should pay it, only poor should pay it. It should not be like that. All sorts of the people, the poor as well as the rich, both have to pay the taxes. Next, he has given much importance to espionage. Espionage means present day intelligence system. We have intelligence system, intelligence agencies nowadays. Similarly, he educated the espionage system even before the Christ. So the king must have a sound espionage system, then only he may protect his kingdom. The next important theory of the political philosophy of Kautilya is the Mandala theory. Mandala theory is nothing but the foreign relations theory. Here our political philosopher Kautilya presented some sort of foreign policy concepts. First, he enumerated 12 types of the neighbors. These are very lengthy enumeration that goes on like this: our neighbor's neighbor, and his neighbor, like that. On all four or 6 or 7 sides, on all sides. So among these 12 kind of neighbors, there may be some friends and some foes. There may be some enemies and some may be friends. Who are the enemy? Generally our immediate neighbor. Kautilya regarded our immediate neighbor as our enemy, and his neighbor as our friend. Why? He is also enemy to that particular kingdom. We are on one side and our neighbor is our enemy. His neighbor on the other side is his enemy. So he may become our friend. All these philosophy goes like that. Among these 12, there will be a neutral kingdom also. That is called as Vijesha. Vijesha. And Kautilya educates that the king should try to win his heart, win his friendship, because he is neutral. He is neither enemy nor ally to us. We should try to make him as ally. Then what will happen? Then the balance of power will be tilted in our favor. That's why we should try to win the heart of the Vijesha, the neutral king. These 12 types of the neighbors are would-be conqueror, hostile neighbor of the conqueror, ally who is neighbor to enemy, ally's ally, like that. So these are 12. Next, he educated sixfold foreign policy with neighbors. He educated that our foreign policy must be based upon 6 principles. The first principle must be coexistence, that live and let live principle. That we should not go into war unnecessarily on other kingdom, and he should not wage war against us unnecessary. This must be our first preference, coexistence. Next, neutrality. We should not indulge in unnecessary disputes with neighbors, or we should not indulge into their disputes. If if two kings have disputes, we should maintain neutrality. The second is alliance. We should form alliances with as much kingdoms as possible. Then it will strengthen our kingdom. It will provide protection to us. Next, double policy, dual policy. That we are not going to adopt a peaceful and honest and a truthful and pious policy. Just all these things, coexistence, neutrality, alliance, are just our strategy. Strategy to strengthen our force, our kingdom. And when we find an opportunity to invade another kingdom, we find that we came to know that kingdom become weak due to one or other reason, we should not hesitate invading it and including merging it into our kingdom, defeating the king, killing the king of that state, like that. So we should have a dual policy, double standards. Next, march. March means moving the armies towards the enemy. Next, war, the real war. These are the sixfold foreign policy suggested by Kautilya. To achieve these sixfold policy, we must have 5 tactics. Then only we can achieve this sixfold policy. Otherwise, we may fail. What are these 5 tactics suggested by Kautilya? The first one is conciliation. The second is fight and bribe, bribing the army commanders, or bribing the courtesians, bribing the people of different tribes, especially powerful groups in that kingdom, like that. Conciliation, fight and bribe. Next, dissension, creation of dissension among the people of that target state. We may have some target for our expansion. For instance, nowadays the China is targeted some area in northeastern provinces of our kingdom or our state. Similarly, we have such designs against Pakistan. The Nepal has certain such designs against India, like that. So whenever we have such a designs against any one of our neighboring state, what we have tried to do, we try to create dissension among the people of that state against that king. Then only we may easily succeed in war, because all those people who are dissented with the king, they may join with our army, and it will greatly help us during the war. Next, decide and pretense. The king should adopt the policy of deceit as much as possible. He should not hesitate deciding the other king or the other kingdom on the moral principle that it is immoral, like that, it is against dharma. All the things are correct if that strengthen our state, that provide gain to our state. That is his policy. Deceit and pretense. Next, open attack or war. These are the 5 tactics through which the above sixfold policy may be achieved. Next, he suggested that the king should not hesitate to break any treaty found to be disadvantageous to our kingdom. The king must conclude agreements, treaties, peace agreements with other kings, with other neighbors. But he should not stuck to those treaties or agreements. He should pretend to follow all those agreements as far as it is advantageous to us. When it gives harms, it brings some harshness to us, then we should break that treaty. Next important concept in the political theory of Kautilya is Mandala theory. Mandala theory is also nothing but a sort of the foreign policy concept or foreign policy theory. He educated sixfold policy with neighbor. This reminds us Panchashila prepared by our Lal Bahadur Shastri ji and Chuen Lai, like that, Joseph Tito, Jamal Abdul Nasir, like that. There were 5 principles in the Panchashila, and here Kautilya educated 6 principles in his foreign policy. First is, we have already seen Vijigeshu. Vijigeshu means the neutral state among those 12 enumerated kingdoms or enumerated neighbors around us. The Vijigeshu is the most important, and if he is strong, our king should try to win his heart by giving gifts and other such things, and try to gain his allies. Then what will happen? The balance of power will be tilted in our favor, and no other country will dare to invade us, because the Vijeshu will be generally in middle of these 12 states. That's why he may influence upon he may have influence upon other states. That's why we must have try to make him as ally. Next is state expansion. Kautilya educated the state expansion also. He is not instructing his philosopher king to follow only a peaceful policy of coexistence. He is educating coexistence. He is educating peaceful treaties. He is educating let live policy. But as far as we prepared for the war, we gain some strength, then up to that point we have to follow all those policies. But once we gain the strength enough to invade the other or defeat the other state, we must invade them. Then what will happen if we won't do that? Kautilya says that the other kings may follow such designs against us. They may invade us, they may conquer us, they may merge us with their own treaty. That's why it is better that we should follow the expansion policy before anyone else follow it. So Kautilya suggested 5 methods for expansion. First, making the enemy key unpopular. We have already seen this under the espionage that we have to create dissent among the people like that. Here he is educating that we have to make our target king as target king as unpopular among his people. By doing so, we may easily win over him. How can we do him unpopular? By saying that, by spreading the rumors against him, that he won't follow the Dharma Shastra, he is immoral, he is doing such crimes against humanity, like that. So, by resorting to such rumors, spreading to such rumors, we may make that king unpopular. Sending the spies to the enemy kingdom. These spies will bring information to us that is very much worthy when we try to invade that kingdom, where how much army he has, how is his economy, how is his readiness for the war. All these things will be informed by the spies. Next, he is going to the extent that the king should expel his own sons from the kingdom under some excuse, that they can take the refuge of the enemy king. And by taking the refuge into the palace of the enemy king, they can easily kill that king, that enemy king. Generally, what used to happen is that if some king expelled his army chief or his own sons or his own relatives like that, the enemy king used to give refuge to such people. And if they belong to royal family, he used to keep those people into his own palace. If they are living in his enemy's palace, then they can easily kill the enemy king. So the deceitfulness goes to such extent in the philosophy of the our philosopher Kautilya. Next, kidnapping the enemy king. If it is possible, we must kidnap the enemy king. Next, stopping water supply to his kingdom if possible. Generally, the rivers flows from one kingdom to another kingdom. In such case, if it is possible, the water should be stopped to the enemy kingdom. Then what happens? The people will develop hatred towards their own king, and they will help us while we invade their kingdom. So this is the political philosophy of the great Chanakya or Kautilya or Vishnugupta, as there are 3 famous names for him, and we should deal with the philosophy of other philosophers in our next lecture. Bye and thank you, one and all.